Welcome to Franchise Empires, where aspiring entrepreneurs learn exactly what it takes to become a successful franchise owner, from one location to 10 and beyond. I'm the Wolf of Franchises.
Hey everyone, it's the Wolf. Today in the show we have Ron Holt. Ron is the founder and former CEO of Two Maids and a Mop, a residential cleaning franchise that he fully bootstrapped in the early 2000s and grew it to over 90 plus territories before he sold to private equity in late 2021. Today, Ron's the founder and CEO of Pink Zebra Moving, his next franchise venture, where he already has 10 plus franchisees operating and more opening soon. Ron shares his struggles and mistakes of growing that first business, Two Maids and a Mop, how he overcame it to success, and why he thinks Pink Zebra Moving can be even bigger. If you love hearing from franchisor founders, you're really going to enjoy this one.
The Wolf of Franchises is the CEO of Wolfpack Franchising, as well as a creator at Workweek Media. All opinions expressed by the Wolf and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Wolfpack Franchising or Workweek. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The Wolf, Workweek, and Wolfpack Franchising may maintain positions in the franchises discussed on this podcast.
Obviously, I know, this began I think from an inbound message, and I've known about Two Maids and a Mop, and I believe that's where your kind of franchise journey started. Probably in the early 2000s.
Long time ago, yep. And we actually opened Two Maids and a Mop on April Fool's Day, 2003. For a few years there, it felt like a bad joke.
Yeah,
but thankfully it turned around, and I'm the like quintessential entrepreneur.
Yep.
You hear all these stories about sacrifice and grit. I had 2 years of loss, 3 years before I earned my first paycheck, cleaned a few houses along the way. We own a cleaning business without a franchise support. That's what you end up doing. And so went through all of that craziness, self-funded, but somehow made it past those early hiccups and was able to build a strong brand afterwards. Yeah, that's where it all started, early 2000s.
Incredible. And so I take it when you started it, did you have the intention to franchise it, or was it just you wanted to build your own business and you picked residential cleaning as a starting point?
Yeah, so number one, the goal was always scale. I was not that educated about the franchising world. In fact, I was the knowledge I had of franchising was actually on the other side from the franchisees, and I heard and met franchisees within the residential cleaning world, and there was a lot of contention. They just didn't seem to have the greatest relationship with their franchisor, and so I stayed away from that for years, even though I wanted to grow. And so we opened our own corporate stores to begin with. Actually opened 12 stores across the Southeast, from the Carolinas down to Florida, and things were going really well. We got past those early hiccups, like I just said, started opening more and more locations, and we said, okay, let's grow more. And I said, well, to do that, we've got to figure out a way to make our infrastructure, our home office, stronger and bigger. And I just wasn't really that excited about it. And this is a crazy story I'm about to tell you, but I kind of dumbed my way into a weird meeting just with Fred DeLuca, of all places, all people, the founder of Subway.
No way.
Yeah, it was crazy. We were at an IFA show. It was the first IFA event I ever attended. And I was in a lobby outside, one of the ballrooms, and he was sitting there. I didn't know who he was. He didn't know who I was. We just sort of met, and he introduced himself, and I did the same. And then we spent I missed every other session. I just spent the rest of the afternoon with Fred, and he became like a mentor to me. And so he taught me how to be a great franchisor, and in a weird way. Like, he would mostly talk about his mistakes and failures, which is weird when you think Subway, you think franchising.
Yeah.
You think everything's perfect. It's all turned to gold. But he talked about all the things that he wished he'd have done better. And so that taught me that you can be a great franchisor. And that's how we ended up actually franchising the Two Maids and a Mop brand versus growing the corporate stores. So that's kind of a crazy story. Fred and I became buddies for a couple of years there. He did pass away a few years after that. But during that time frame, I learned so much about this industry, and proud to say we still do a lot of it here at Pink Zebra Moving.
Fascinating. So it's fair to say, thanks to that kind of just choice encounter that, you were dead set after that, hey, franchising is the way to grow this business.
Yeah. So I didn't really know. We knew cleaning businesses. That's what I do. I built it from the ground up, and so we knew how to market. We knew what products to use. We knew how to provide an estimate. We knew all the inside baseball stuff to house cleaning as an industry, but we didn't know a whole lot about franchise relationships. We didn't know how to train that. We didn't know how to support that. We didn't know what kind of technology you would need to pull that off. We didn't know KPIs that were going to be important. So simple things like that. And so for about a year, that's all we did was just sort of immerse ourselves in all things training and support. And over time, we felt like we were able to build a model that was bigger than just, a cool marketing process, which we did have, And so after about a year, then we started converting those 12 corporate stores one by one into franchise units. And so we didn't really sell a whole lot of new ones until that following year after that even. But once we started converting those, we became almost overnight this fairly large brand. We had 12 operating franchises at the time that all were very, very successful because we owned them, we built them, and so it was a startup emerging franchise brand, but with a twist because we had all those corporate stores that immediately graduated into franchises for us.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I had someone else, Jeff Duden from, he's now at Home Front Brands, but started, drawing a blank. If he's listening to this, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah. He and I share a common connection there. He sold his brand to the same folks that we did. So
Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah. Well, whatever that brand is, I want to say ChemDry, but I could be totally making that up. Anyway, he kind of started going the corporate route, then was like, actually, franchising is the way, and it was nice because he did a similar thing where those corporate stores he was able to sell them off to become the first franchisees. So yeah, interesting strategy. It seems like it can have some benefits. I want to dive into, before we get to Pink Zebra, I know that you ended up selling Two Maids and a Mop around 90 locations. And just, I want to hear, since that was your first foray into franchising, I guess it would be helpful to know what year around did you start actually actively selling franchises, and then just what was that early process like for you? Being, you had, like you said, you had the inside baseball knowledge of cleaning, but you just probably didn't have, aside from Fred's, wisdom, too much inside baseball on the franchising side. So what was that like?
Right. Yeah, it was a learning curve. Our early franchisees took it on the chin a few times because we were inexperienced. So for the first 6 years or so, we built cleaning businesses. We opened them obviously under the same brand. Yeah. And I literally lived on the road, just going location, and eventually decided to franchise in around 2000, late 2008, early 2009. And during, again, the course of that whole first year, we just converted those units into franchises. The growth really took off sometime around 2011 or 12. And that's when we started actually getting more serious about opening new franchises instead of just converting these guys into existing ones. And when that happened, it was like a rocket ship. You always hear about the hockey stick. That's exactly what happened for us. And so we went kind of crazy pretty quickly. We had 24 deals that first year, so basically 2 a month, which for us was overwhelming. It was a lot. Yeah. It was taxing on us because we didn't really have the infrastructure to pull that off. We had chosen franchising because we didn't necessarily want a large infrastructure, but we grew so fast, so quickly that it even taxed the people we did have. And so we also, the biggest mistakes we made was just size of territories. I mean, I've told this story a bunch. I get a lot of credit for doing a lot of things right, but my mistakes were pretty bad. And so this one was a huge one. We awarded the entire DC area, not just DC proper, but Maryland and Northern Virginia, to one franchisee.
Oh, that's good for that person won the lottery.
Thank goodness they actually it turned out great. They're awesome operators in that system. They're still growing. I think they own locations all the way down to South Carolina now, and their lives changed because of it, but not because they were obligated to do it. It's just they were great entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And so learning how to accurately build a territory that was conducive for growth. But also allowed for our brand's growth as well. That was a hard lesson. Secondly, when it comes to training and support, again, we knew house cleaning, and so while we learned a lot from other brands and how to become a franchisor, living it is a whole other world, And so some of the things that we experienced, we didn't really expect, like marketing, for example. We had a really strong digital marketing strategy that at the time was like revolutionary. Like nobody knew what to do about it. And so we would enter a market and like almost overnight take over, at least the digital side of marketing. And so we just assumed everybody would fall in love with it because it was so awesome. The ROI was just through the roof.
Yeah.
And so we opened in one of our locations in Florida and we said, this is how you do it. Go do it. And here's the playbook, And so a few weeks pass. We're not growing quite as quickly as we usually grow when we open a new location in that particular market. And so when we pulled it back, we learned pretty quickly why. The franchisee had decided that they knew more about marketing than we did. And so said, yours stinks, mine's better. I'm going to do it my way. So we didn't have any type of oversight or control to ensure that marketing process was being executed properly. And so we had to fix that. We actually built our own internal marketing agency because of that experience. And that allowed there to be more uniformity and consistency as we grew. Yeah. Also, I keep going.
Yeah.
Those are the two big ones that stick out.
No, it's fascinating. And I mean, it's funny for anyone listening, at least, I don't know if every franchise developer kind of agrees with this, but just from, my days in franchise development with typically working with retail concepts, but, like brick and mortar concepts, but the DMV, the Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, that was like the market, the prime market. So it's funny that you're saying you just gave it away to one person because, we could cut that up and sell theoretically,
sure.
Dozens, if not over 100 units just in the Maryland, right. Virginia, Northern Virginia, and D.C. area. It's just so many people.
Yeah, it was a big miss, but thankfully we got lucky.
Yeah,
we got
that's
real fortunate on that.
That's good to hear. I'm curious on the operational side, right? For the marketing. I mean, was it an issue of like standardization, meaning like, are they creating different, whether it's Facebook ads or, I don't know if you did direct mailers or whatever it is.
Even worse.
Yeah.
Even worse. So the business actually started very strong. And so this, again, speaks to our lack of control early on. The business is so strong that it taxed the business, in terms of just demands. Talent was needed. And they didn't really want to grow that quickly. And so they would stop and start marketing whenever they wanted to. The stopping was whenever they got so busy that they were forced to hire more people. They didn't want to hire people, they wanted to stick with their initial crew. And of course, we, the brand, wants to grow. If you're not growing, you're dying, and so we saw that like up and down cycle and said, what the heck's going on? And it aligned perfectly with the start and stop of the marketing decisions they were making. So they thankfully were utilizing they were utilizing a similar process and strategies, again, the digital side of things, but they just were stopping it. And so that was an easy fix. As we started growing, we did get a lot of people who wanted to do more things. I mean, marketing can be sort of like a rifle approach where you're very honed in, it's sharp and in focus, or it can be more like a shotgun where it's just sort of scattered, and all over the place. And it feels like since you're doing so much, that big things are happening. And so a lot of our franchisees said, well, this marketing stuff is working, but it's so boring. It's just plug and play. What about a billboard? What about sponsoring the local hockey team or whatever? So we're like, no, but if you want to, fine, as long as you do this. And so we built the marketing agency so they would not make bad decisions when it came to things like that. And so it really worked well for us. It came with some issues because now we weren't just a training and support company. That's what I think franchising is training and support. We were also a marketing company. And so sometimes if the marketing wasn't as perfect as we had hoped, the training and support side of what we offered and delivered wasn't as valued and respected, and so it forced us to be good at a lot of things so that the franchisee would think differently, think highly of what we were providing. So we've actually changed that here at Pink Zebra Moving, even though we had a good experience with it there. I wanted our value to be training and support, brand standards and all those things. And so we outsource most of that work here versus bringing it in-house. We even built our own software at Two Maids. And so we had a whole team of software engineers, but here we've outsourced essentially all of that outside of what we do in terms of teaching and support.
Fascinating. Some just really good operational insights there for anyone who's a franchisor. So I guess before we get to Pink Zebra, so I know, as you alluded to, right, you did sell it. Was there a motivation for that? Obviously, I'm sure financial motivation, we can't ignore that, but why stop one? Obviously you get to cash in the chips, but then restart versus just continuing to grow. Was there anything else entrepreneurial where you thought like, hey, I've been at this for 20 years. Was it just time?
Yeah. So I'm very entrepreneurial. I love it. I love everything about owning a business, from the craziness to the good stuff, And so the craziness was something I was sort of lacking. We had built this business that had become this like large enterprise. We had thousands of employees across the network, from California to Florida, and so things were really good. But my day looked a lot different than it did during those early ramp up years. I was involved in meetings, traveling, and very bureaucratic decision making type things were happening. And I had become a CEO, instead of just a crazy entrepreneur. And while a lot of that was cool, I guess, I kind of lived the American dream through all that and built, something out of nothing. But I didn't love that life. That's the whole reason I became an entrepreneur, is to get away from the corporate rat race, And so here I am doing that after something I had built. And so I was struggling with that. Like, what do I do? I didn't want to be nuts and just bring chaos into the business just so I could feel, fulfilled. But I also couldn't stand the 6 hours of meetings a day, And so I said, what am I going to do? Well, about that time, my mother-in-law, of all people, hired a moving company right here in Birmingham, our headquarters. And so she had a horrible experience, as you can imagine. It's like everything that did go wrong. And it was a mess, And so she was upset and telling myself and my wife the story and all the, trials and tribulations of it. And so as she's telling me the story, I love home services. I'm a huge fan of home services. I had been actively searching for some type of opportunity in that space, home service space, but nothing really attracted, because I wanted something that was disruptible, and nothing really, was shining for me, And so when she told me that, I pulled out my phone, looked in Yelp, and I went to, I tell this story all the time, but not that much of research went into it, but I went to Seattle, Omaha, and Miami. I felt like that was the best way to measure the country.
Yeah.
And so I checked out negative reviews in each of those three markets. They essentially matched what my mother was. And so that sort of got my wheels spinning. Like, maybe this is an opportunity. Maybe this is my way to transition. And so as all that's happening, I kind of marry those two thoughts I just shared with you. Yeah. And that's when I came to the decision that I wanted to return to startup life, build this thing all over again, and build one location into hundreds across the country, and sell this business of mine that for a long time I felt like was a child. I felt like it was my firstborn child for a long, long time. And so it was actually very tough. It was actually an emotional decision, because money's great. All the great things that come from that is awesome. The security that comes from that's really cool. But it's who I'd identified it. I was identified as Two Maids and a Mop for 2 decades. And so to just all of a sudden say that's over, it was kind of a tough decision to pull off. And so anyway, I finally got to the point where I was, embracing it more and dove headfirst into moving at that point.
Amazing. I really love the candidness there. And yeah, I mean, I get it. To me, what you're saying, I haven't necessarily had that with the company yet, but I played soccer basically since I was age 6 and all the way through senior year of college. And when I stopped playing, I mean, that was like, whoa, like this is that was my life. That was like a Division I player. At points wanted to go pro. Obviously, didn't make it there. Division I was the highest tier, but it was tough when you dedicate like yourself to something for so long. So, and I also understand too. Even I think what you said about it, Two Maids and a Mop sounds like it really got to like become more of an enterprise where you were more of a CEO versus there are a lot of people who are like, like they're serial. They call themselves like serial founders, at least on Twitter. Where I before we went live, I kind of told you I spend a lot of time online there with just what I'm doing with content. And yeah, there's people who say like they really just enjoy the 0 to 1 phase of company building and maybe a little bit more, but they're not necessarily enjoying the later stages where it does become a bit of a different game that you have to play. There's obviously no right or wrong thing about that. It's just what you like as an entrepreneur.
Right.
I am curious. You said you stumbled on negative reviews in Seattle, Omaha, Miami. What was it that really got your wheels turning that said, boom, there's opportunity in this industry?
Yeah. So what was intriguing to me was there were one negative review after the other in all these different markets from all these different people that had never connected with one another. And they were different companies providing these services. So all of that was shared. But on the other side, all of those folks were paying $1,000, $2,000 plus dollars for the service. And so I couldn't think of another industry where someone would spend that kind of money and be that unhappy. Today, this afternoon, if you go out and you purchase something for $1,000, you expect to be satisfied with it.
Yep.
It's not something you go, well, it sucked, but what else was I supposed to do? I guess taxes can make that. You could say that. But outside of that, usually if it's an investment or just some form of entertainment, you're going to want something for that money, but you weren't getting that in moving. In fact, customers have said, well, what do you do? Next time I move, I got to call another moving company, and so I was attracted to this big ticket. I didn't have that experience at Two Maids because our tickets were much lower. They were less than $200 per per customer on average. And so on this side, on the moving side, there's actually two worlds, long distance moving and then local moving, which is where we really focus our efforts. On the local, it's just what it sounds like if you move from like one zip code to the other.
Yeah.
And it's a one-day move, And so those one-day moves are still very expensive for the consumer. They're typically over $2,000. And so I saw this $2,000 plus ticket opportunity combined with all of these negative experiences. And I said, that's a world that I would love to be in because I'm not used to that. I'm used to these $200 tickets, And so that's what got me going and saying, hey, I didn't know one thing about moving other than what the negative things were with the industry. I'd never picked up I guess my buddies in college and we moved a couch or something when we moved into a different apartment or whatever, but I had never worked for a professional moving company. I had never even driven one of the trucks, we have 26-foot truck here and never driven one of those. So looked at all sorts of different options in terms of how to enter this industry. Again, I'm a startup guy, so I chose the hardest route, which was just to start from the ground up.
Yeah.
Much like those early customers at Two Maids. Our early customers here at Pink Zebra Moving were a mess for the first really almost 2 years, about a year and a half to 2 years. All we did was run a moving company in Birmingham. I didn't want to think about franchising. I was kind of coming off the work, and the mountain I'd climbed at Two Maids, and I wasn't quite ready to start climbing another mountain anyway. And so we just said, let's master this home market. Let's learn from those experiences. Let's figure out how to make money doing it and, enjoy that experience. And then we'll go hard on franchising later. And so that's what we did. I went from, working in a high rise, like corporate suite to managing movers, almost overnight. It was definitely a change of culture and worldview for me, but also invigorating. It's like every day I felt more and more energized. And so, yeah, it took us a couple of years to get it. We had a lot of fun doing it. I mean, I had to learn how to sell. I had to learn how to price. I had to learn what trucks to use, how to hire the right movers. A lot of the technology that we used at Two Maids and even processes at Two Maids, I said, let's just make a carbon copy over here at Pink Zebra. Well, it wasn't always the case, even though they seem very similar because they're both in the home service space, it's two different worlds. And so we couldn't necessarily just say, do that again. And so we had to learn some new things that we weren't accustomed to. And it took us a while to get there. But after about a year and a half, I said, man, we got something. We got a business that can grow very quickly. One of the great things about this business compared to the one I was in before, it can scale extremely quickly with 4-figure tickets, being the average ticket. You can really grow quickly. I mean, we've got some franchisees that I can't share numbers, but they're just kick and tell, and they're less than 90 days old, and so that would have been unheard of in my previous world. And so once we learned how to build revenue, once we learned how to make profits from that revenue, and once we had all the internal systems down and ready to go, then we started doing the stuff you're supposed to do, publish the FDD, figure out how to sell the opportunity, in different places. We focused mostly on the Southeast initially, just because, again, we're here. And then just this year, even 2023, we've opened up the entire country for development. But for the first really a year and a half or so, we just kind of contained it to the Southeastern footprint.
Yeah. Very interesting. And I mean, I can even tell, I love your branding. So that right away just sticks out. It almost looks like an ice cream truck in a way, the color scheme, which is a good thing. I actually think my original professional career began in the HVAC world, and it always, kind of killed me that, these different small businesses, HVAC and plumbing contractors, that all the names sounded very similar. It would be like All American Plumbing, All American HVAC, Great American HVAC, and just white truck, random, maybe the font's a little different, but they all look the same. And there's the top companies always seem to have, you could tell they had some thought behind the brand and the truck wrap and because that's such a good marketing material as you're driving around. I'm looking at your truck online right now, the pink stripes on it. I would remember that truck. I've never seen a truck like that in my life. So I think it's just a good opportunity. But I'm curious, just was there anything specific that drove you to that name, or were you just thinking, let's stand out?
Yeah, a lot of different sort of factors played into it. Number one, what you just said, we wanted to stand out, not just for the sake of being different, but we wanted to be different than our industry. We felt like we were going to disrupt this industry. Actually, we're going to create a whole new category. We call it happy movers. And so we're the pioneer in that movement right now. But we wanted to be completely different, and we wanted it to be obvious, And so the easiest way to do that was, one, start with the color pink, because that's not what you think when you think male testosterone-filled, movers. And so let's start with the color pink, and where do we go from there? Well, I'm a huge fan. I'm a book nerd. I read all the time. And so, I read business books all the time, I should say. I don't read anything else. So I'm very one channel. And so anyway, I am a huge fan of this guy named Seth Godin. Seth Godin wrote a book, or several books, on marketing and branding. And one of those books is called The Purple Cow. And have you read The Purple Cow before?
I have not, but I've heard it. Heard of it.
So you'll get this because you live in Texas, right? So you've seen a few cows and steers, I guess you call it here. And so if you drive through an area where there's a bunch of cows, probably not in Austin, but maybe outside of Austin, then you'll see just cows, right? Nothing stands out about those cows. They all look the same. They're no stripes, nothing, And so if for some reason you saw a purple cow, then you would always remember that date and that time. That memory would be inside of you forever. You'd never forget it 20 years from now. So that's the essence and principles behind Purple Cow and how it translates to businesses, because in his book, he talks about how most businesses think hard work and capital and all these things are what's necessary for growth inside of a business. And nobody really thinks, well, why should a consumer want to hire us? Why should they buy our product or service? And so we wanted to create a purple cow within this business, and I'll tell you more about that. But the way to start that, the way to lead first with that purple cow mentality is just to change the name. And so that's why we incorporated zebra. It doesn't hurt that zebra stripes are fun, but pink zebra became the brand because we really believe in that type of ideology. So yeah, that's sort of the purpose behind it. There's all sorts of really cool things that we do. Like I said, we think we're going to create a whole new category of movers. We think one day people are going to say, "Hey, are you one of those happy moving guys or one of those old school moving guys?" And that's our tagline is we make moving fun. So the idea of making moving fun probably sounds a little weird because how could that be fun? We make it fun. We put on a whole show. We think moving's theater. Before, during, and after a move, we have all sorts of fun, antics, surprises. We do dances. We do push-ups. Zeke, the mascot, shows up. We play music throughout the house. I mean, it's a whole thing. We even feed people the night before for free. And so it's a whole opportunity for us, again, to put on a real show. And when it's all said and done, we want customers to go, wow, I can't believe those guys did that. We want people to look forward to that. And that's happening. We get customers who hire us and they go, man, I can't wait till you show up because what's going to happen? Like what crazy things are going to happen besides just the obvious picking up boxes, But it's kind of cool hearing customers say that. We see it in some of our reviews, across the country now, and it's what I've dreamed of when we first had the idea to start a moving company.
It's really interesting. I mean, just the word of mouth growth from. I'm sure customers might not even know that you're going to do that at times. So they're probably like, whoa, this is not what I expected. And then they naturally would probably tell all their friends and all that stuff. And I'm sure their neighbors notice. So that's a really good marketing tactic, if not anything else. And I think that the dinner thing is a really nice touch because, I've moved quite a bit recently over the past few years, especially with COVID and, I know a lot of people obviously have kind of been all over the place with that, but I always underestimate how long it takes. And the night before, it's usually a big time crunch. So yeah, if I had someone bring me dinner, that'd be nice. That's usually the last thing on my mind. So very nice gesture, I would say. I mean, I guess I'm really interested in this happy moving idea. Like, I'm imagining, does it make it harder to hire for franchisees? Because you probably would want someone who's on board with that, right? Versus maybe someone is, I don't know, personality or even attitude where they're just like, no, I just want to pick things up and put them down. I'm not putting on a smile.
So we're in 10 markets right now. Got a lot of really cool things in the pipeline. It looks like it's going to be a big year for us. And so we're in 10 markets right now. So the answer is yes. Early on, it is difficult because movers aren't accustomed to something like what we're seeing. They're not accustomed to us expecting them to know how to dance a little bit, expecting them to put on a show, like I said, and do more than just work, And so the first round of employees get an introduction to the brand through myself. We have all sorts of training that goes along to beyond the physical part of what we offer in terms of training. And so early on, there's some hesitation, some worry, a little bit of even anxiety from new employees. But over time, culture does its thing, So every franchisee we're bringing, one of the reasons we're at 10 locations right now is because we've had to kind of slow the growth because we really want franchisees to join our network for the right reason. They got to believe in what we're doing. They got to believe we are a pioneer. They got to believe that we are creating a whole new category called happy moving, And so to do that, the owners build that culture. They hire people who then carry that torch. And then over time, it kind of does its thing, So those first few hires, it's all brand new. But once you get that core there, once they really start seeing the difference, I mean, truthfully, it's not just something that's good for us, the business owners, but our movers make more money because of it. We pay them a great wage. Our franchisees usually pay our movers anywhere from $18 to $22 per hour, and so they're working all day making decent money, but the tips in this industry can be pretty significant as well. Well, you put on a show for a customer and you do things that they're not really accustomed to seeing from a moving company, you're going to get bigger jumps because of it. And so they feel that, they see it, so the more push-ups I do, the more sillier I act, the more I even just, if I just say hello to a customer instead of put the hoodie on and earbuds, they put my head down, if I just say hello to a customer, that can create more chips, for me. And so that's sort of where we lead over time. Then we sort of have internal competitions and challenges to get people to bring stories back every single day in a morning meeting. A manager or an owner, whoever's present for that meeting, is going to challenge their team to bring a story back, a positive story. And sometimes that story is very generic. Sometimes it's crazy, sometimes it's unbelievable, some of the things that happen. And none of that has anything to do with process or systems. It's just the culture that's inside this brand and in our franchises business. So yeah, I mean, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it gets easier over time.
I like that. That's really interesting. Of the fact that you've had to slow growth purposefully to really make sure that cultural foundation is there. Because it's definitely, I mean, it's something that can be infectious, and even like you mentioned, some people may be a little hesitant or even anxious. But if you come into a business and a company and everyone's kind of doing things one way, it's like, oh, okay, like this is how it's done.
Yes, so, how you do it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I would love it. So I mean, I'm definitely rooting for you to succeed with the happy moving movement, because I mean, traditionally my moves have been miserable. It's no fun at all.
Not happy.
Yeah, not happy moves. It's stressful and painful, and it takes forever. So I'm definitely for this. I do notice too, I think, Ron, did you start the first corporate location during COVID?
Well, it's what part of COVID, but yes.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, we were all in during the early part of COVID with the Two Maids, because our industry was, like every business, was just, worried about what the future was going to be.
Yeah.
It turned out to actually be a bonanza for us, because we were considered an essential provider. And so we were overworked during the most of 2020, outside of March and April. And so once we got past that, we had our head down working. And then in mid to late 2021 is when we started to get, or at least I started to get more and more serious about selling the business and focusing on Pink Zebra. So I sold in September of 21, and then we opened roughly the same time.
Wow. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. My wife was not happy about that. She said, why can't you take a break?
Yeah. Take a break, take a vacation. Love it. And I mean, long term here, do you have your sights set on a longer term goal, or?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Obviously, the big goal is to create this category. I keep talking about happy movers, and so to do that, we can't just be great in 10 markets. That's not going to move the needle. This is Act 2 for me, clearly. And so Act 2 for me, I want to be a more than just a money-making initiative. Like, we, of course, want to make money. Why not? It's a business. But the legacy is really what's more important to me here. And so to do that, we want to open and scale across this country. We have 250 plus opportunities, market opportunities across this country. We made some mistakes at Two Maids. Obviously, we overcame them, built a strong brand, and they're still doing it. So proud to see where they're growing. But some of those mistakes, we had to live through those at Two Maids. So here, we don't have to make those. We don't have to live with a crazy decision to franchise one person in DC here. We already know that's a bad idea. And so all of those mistakes that we made, that we had to just sort of deal with at Two Maids, we get to erase that and start all over here. And so it just makes life a lot easier for us. And so we think we're ready to grow. We've got the team, the technology, all the systems, and everything. We're ready to, to just take it to the next level. And so we're at 10 locations right now. But really, where we're at right now in terms of next phase is to go nationwide. And so we're not holding back at this point. We're ready to go. And so we're getting a lot of folks who are interested. Most people get really excited when they talk to us, because we're I call it, we have three things. Most franchises brands have two things. They have process and profits. We have process, profits, but we also have purpose. So our brand's doing more than just a strong system with, some money behind it. We have a reason for being. I said I'm a book nerd. There's a great book by Simon Sinek. I probably said that name wrong. It starts with why. That's us. This is our why. This is our reason for being, purpose in life now. So our franchisees get to participate in that journey with us and give themselves their own lives purpose as well. So it's just fun. I'm having a ball doing this, and passion that comes from having fun usually means success. So that's what we're seeing so far.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, look, you guys are off to a great start. So congrats on all the success so far. And I think the fact that, like you said, this isn't your second rodeo, this isn't your first rodeo. Yeah. That's huge from a support, training, and franchise growth perspective. And it seems like you've built a great brand so far and identified some real pain points that can be solved. So definitely wishing you all the best, Ron. And if folks want to follow you or Pink Zebra Moving, is there any good place online where they can get more information on either?
Yeah, well, number one, I have two syllables, Ron Holt. So easy to find on social channels. People reach out all the time by LinkedIn. Hey, how do I franchise my company? I don't mind having those conversations. I love it. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you want to know more about the franchise opportunity, Pink Zebra Moving, it's easy to find as well. It's pinkzebramovingfranchise.com. You're going to find out all sorts of cool things about it. You're going to see that ice cream looking truck like you just saw. You're going to see some of the stories that we've seen and lived through across the network. You're going to meet some of our franchisees as well. So pinkzebramovingfranchise.com.
Fantastic. And look, folks, we'll plug all that in the show notes. And you can get in touch and learn more about the brand. And I highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for, a service franchise with a lower investment range. This looks like a very interesting brand. So, Ron, thanks again, and we'll talk soon.
You bet. It's great being here. Thanks for asking me to join.
Thanks for listening to Franchise Empires. We're coming to you soon with actionable insights to take the next step on your franchise journey. So make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen.